January 3rd, 1967, 10:15 a.m., Harlem Hospital, Dr. Sarah Chen's office. Bumpy Johnson sat across from the woman who'd saved his life a dozen times over 25 years. But today, her face said something different. Today, she couldn't save him. "Bumpy, we need to talk about your test results." He'd been feeling tired lately, short of breath, chest pains. Nothing dramatic, just wrong. Dr. Chen pulled out x-rays, clipped them to the light box. "Your heart, it's failing. Congestive heart failure. Advanced." "How advanced?" 6 months, maybe less. Bumpy didn't react, not externally. Just stared at the x-rays, like they were someone else's. "Can you fix it?" "No." "Surgery?" "Too risky. Your heart wouldn't survive." "Medicine?" "Will help manage symptoms, but won't stop progression." "So I'm dying." "Yes, in 6 months, approximately." "When?" "Late June, early July, maybe August if you're lucky." "Lucky?" Bumpy laughed, bitter. "That's a strange word for dying. I'm sorry. I wish there was more I could do. You've done enough. Kept me alive 62 years. In this life. That's a miracle." Dr. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "What will you do? With 6 months?" "I don't know yet, but I know what I won't do." "What?" "Waste it." 10:45 a.m. Bumpy left the hospital. Walked Harlem streets. Alone. Something he rarely did anymore. Too dangerous. But today, danger seemed irrelevant. What could kill him that wasn't already killing him? He passed Small's Paradise, his empire's headquarters for 35 years. Past the Apollo Theater, where he'd seen Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington. Past the corner where he'd killed his first man in 1925, 42 years ago. Past the spot where Dutch Schultz had tried to kill him in 1935, 32 years ago. Past his brother Marcus's old house, where Marcus Jr. now lived, with his wife, building a life, free from crime, because Bumpy had kept his promise. Every corner, every block, every building held a memory, a battle, a victory, a loss. This was his kingdom, his life, his legacy. And in 6 months, he'd be gone. The question was simple. What would he leave behind? January 4th, 1967, 8 a.m. Bumpy called a meeting with his inner circle. Mamie, Junie, Willie, Raymond, Tommy Chen, at Small's Paradise. Private room. He told no one about the diagnosis. Not yet. But now he needed to. "I have something to tell you." They listened, expecting business. Territory disputes. Money problems. Not this. "I'm dying." Silence. "What?" Mamie stood up. "Heart failure. Dr. Chen says 6 months. "No." "Yes. It's real." "How long have you known?" "Since yesterday." "And you're just telling us now?" "I needed time to process, to plan." Mamie started crying. Willie looked down. Junie's jaw clenched. Raymond went pale. Tommy Chen closed his eyes. Bumpy continued. "I don't want sadness. I don't want pity. I want action." "What kind of action?" "I have 6 months. I'm going to use them." "To do what?" "To build something that lasts. Longer than me, bigger than me, better than me." "What does that mean?" "It means transforming everything." "How?" "By spending 6 months fixing what I broke, building what I should have built, and preparing Harlem for a future without me." January 5th to 15th, the first 10 days. Planning. Bumpy pulled out a notebook, started writing. Title: Legacy, 6 months to build forever. Page 1. Succession. Who takes over when I'm gone? Junie Bird, age 58, loyal, smart, respected, capable, but needs training, needs exposure,
needs legitimacy. Plan. Spend February teaching Junie everything. How to lead. How to negotiate. How to transition from crime to community leadership. Page 2. Financial transformation. Current income sources. Illegal gambling, 40%. Protection rackets, 25%. Loan sharking, 20%. Legitimate businesses, 15%. Goal. By June, flip it. Legitimate businesses, 60%. Gambling, 25%. Protection, 10%. Loan sharking, 5%. Then phase out completely over next 5 years.
Page 3. Community investment. Current community spending, $200,000 per year. Goal, $2 million in 6 months. Projects, 6 community centers, 3 youth programs, 2 scholarship funds, 1 medical clinic, all permanent, all sustainable. Page 4. Family protection. Marcus Jr. set up trust fund, $500,000, for him and his future children. Elena, Marcus Sr.'s widow, give her the house, free and clear, plus $100,000. Mamie, everything else, the businesses, the properties, the money, she'll decide what to do with it. Page 5. Apologies and reconciliation. People I hurt, make amends where possible. People I wronged, try to right those wrongs. People I failed, acknowledge it, even if it's too late. Page 6. Final message. Write it all down.
Why I lived this life, what I learned, what I regret, what I'm proud of, so people understand, even if they don't agree. Bumpy closed the notebook. This was his plan. 6 months, 6 goals, 1 legacy. Time to work.
February 1967, Month 2, Succession Training. February 1st, Bumpy began teaching Junie everything. How to read people, how to negotiate, how to know when to fight, when to walk away, when to compromise. Junie, you're going to lead when I'm gone. I don't want to think about that. You have to, because it's happening, whether we want it or not. What do I need to know? Everything. And we have 5 months. They spent February together, every day, morning to night. Bumpy shared the commission relationships, who to trust, who to watch, who to never turn your back on. The police connections, which cops were honest, which were corrupt, which could be worked with. The political landscape, which politicians helped Harlem, which exploited it, which could be influenced. The business operations, which were profitable, which were liabilities, which to expand, which to shut down. The community relationships, which leaders mattered, which organizations to support, which people to protect. By the end of February, Junie knew more than he'd learned in 30 years, but knowledge wasn't wisdom. That would take time Bumpy didn't have. February 15th, Bumpy started transforming finances, called meetings with his accountants, his lawyers, his business managers. I want to go legitimate. Boss, that'll take years. I don't have years, I have 4 months. Then we need to move fast. Do it. First step, sold the gambling operations to Tommy Chen for $800,000, below market value, but to a trusted partner who'd run them responsibly. Second step, ended protection rackets, told businesses, you don't owe me anymore. If you want to pay for legitimate security, fine. If not, you're free. Most kept paying because they wanted the protection, not because they feared him. Third step, restructured loan sharking, converted high-interest loans to low-interest community loans.
Lost money in the short term, but built goodwill. Fourth step, invested in legitimate businesses, restaurants, laundromats, barbershops, record stores, real estate. By the end of February, illegal income down to 35%, legitimate income up to 65%. Progress.
February 20th. Bumpy told Mamie his plan for her. After I'm gone, you'll have everything. I don't want everything.
I want you. I know, but you can't have that. So I'm giving you a choice. What choice? You can keep the empire, run it, with Junie, stay in this life. Or what? You can sell it all, take the money, leave Harlem, start over somewhere safe, somewhere peaceful, somewhere you can just be Mamie, not Bumpy Johnson's widow. Which do you want me to choose? I want you to choose what makes you happy, not what honors me. I don't know what makes me happy anymore. Then you have 4 months to figure it out. Mamie cried. Bumpy held her. For the first time in 30 years, she saw him vulnerable. Really vulnerable.
I'm scared, Bumpy. Of what? Of being without you. I've been Bumpy Johnson's wife for 30 years. I don't know how to be anything else. You're Mamie Johnson. That's enough. You've always been enough, with or without me.
February 28th, end of month 2. Progress report. Bumpy sat in his office, reviewed what he'd accomplished. Junie, trained, ready, confident. Finances, 65% legitimate, moving toward sustainability. But 2 goals untouched: community investment and personal reconciliation. Those would be March and April. 4 months left. Time was running out. But Bumpy felt different. Not scared. Not sad. Purposeful. For 35 years he'd taken from Harlem. Taken power. Taken money. Taken respect. For the next 4 months, he'd give back. Everything. And more. This was his redemption. This was his legacy. This was his final act. And it would be his best.
March 1967, month 3, community investment.
March 1st, 1967, Bumpy announced his biggest project at a community meeting, Abyssinian Baptist Church. 500 people, Reverend Powell hosted. Bumpy stood at the podium, looked older, thinner, but determined. I'm building 6 community centers in 6 different neighborhoods. Each will have recreational facilities for kids, educational programs, job training, medical services, legal aid, all free, all permanent, all funded by me. The crowd was silent. Then someone asked, "Why now?" "Because I should have done it 30 years ago." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was selfish, focused on power, on money, on survival. But that was wrong. I took from this community for decades. Now I'm giving back. How much will this cost? $2 million. Where's that money coming from? From me, from what I've earned. Some honestly, some not. But all of it's going back to where it belongs, to Harlem. The crowd applauded. Not everyone believed him. Some thought it was a PR stunt. Some thought he was dying and buying his way into heaven. They were partially right about the second part, but Bumpy didn't care what they thought. He cared about the work. March 5th to 31st, 26 days of construction. Bumpy hired local contractors, paid fair wages. Local workers, trained them, gave them skills. Local suppliers, supported Harlem businesses. He visited every site, every day, talked to workers, asked about their families, their dreams, their struggles. One worker, James Brown, age 45, said, "Mr. Johnson, I've worked construction 20 years, but never made enough to support my family. You're paying me double what I usually make. Why? Because your work is worth it, and because I should have been paying people fairly all along." James teared up. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just build these centers well, so they last, after I'm gone. Are you going somewhere?" Eventually, we all are. By March 31st, 4 community centers completed, 2 in progress, on schedule, on budget, better than planned. The community started believing this was real. Bumpy Johnson was changing. April 1967, month 4, family and reconciliation. April 1st, Bumpy visited Marcus Johnson Jr., his nephew, now 24 years old, Columbia Law graduate, working as a community organizer.
Everything Marcus Sr. wanted, everything Bumpy promised. They met at Marcus Jr.'s apartment, Harlem, small, clean, humble. "Uncle Bumpy? Marcus, can I come in?" "Of course." They sat, awkward at first. 16 years since Marcus Sr.'s death. They'd stayed in touch, but not close. Bumpy had kept his distance, afraid of contaminating Marcus Jr. with his life. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm dying." Marcus Jr. went pale. "What?" "Heart failure. 3 months left, maybe less." "Uncle Bumpy, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, just listen." "Okay. Your father was the best man I ever knew, better than me in every way.
He died because of my life, because I couldn't protect him from Dutch Keller. That wasn't your fault. It was. And I've lived with that guilt every day for 16 years. So I made a promise to your father to take care of you, to make sure you had opportunities, to make sure you escaped this life. Did I keep that promise? Yes. You paid for everything. School, college, law school. You protected Mom, gave us a new house. You kept every promise. Good. Because that's my legacy. Not the crime, not the violence, not the empire. You. You're what I'm most proud of. Marcus Jr. started crying. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm dying, and I need you to know that everything I did, all the bad, all the violence, all the crime,
It produced one good thing. You. You're proof that this life doesn't have to continue, that cycles can be broken, that sons don't have to follow fathers. Thank you, Uncle Bumpy. You're welcome. And Marcus? Yes. Take care of your mother. And when you have kids, tell them about your father. Not me. Tell them about Marcus Sr., the good man, the peaceful man, the man who built things instead of destroying them. That's the legacy worth remembering. I will. I promise.
April 10th. Bumpy visited people he'd wronged. First stop, Dorothy Williams, age 68. Her husband had worked for Bumpy. In the 1940s, stole money. Bumpy had him killed. Dorothy had raised 3 kids alone, struggled, survived, but barely. Bumpy knocked on her door. She answered, saw him. Face went hard. "What do you want?" "To apologize." "For what?" "For killing your husband. You're 30 years too late." "I know, but I'm dying, and I needed to say it. I'm sorry. For taking him from you, for leaving you alone, for making your life harder. Your sorry doesn't bring him back. No, it doesn't, honey. Restitution. I can't undo what I did."
But I can try to make it right. Dorothy stared at the envelope, then at Bumpy. You think this fixes it? No, but it's all I can offer. She took the envelope. Get out. I'm sorry. I said get out. Bumpy left. She didn't forgive him. He didn't expect her to. But he'd tried. That was something.
April 15th to 30th. More apologies. 2. The widow of a man Bumpy killed in 1938. She wouldn't see him. He left money with her daughter. The family of a man who went to prison for Bumpy's crime. In 1945. Bumpy confessed to them. They cried. He cried. The mother of a kid killed in crossfire during a shootout. 1950. She screamed at him, told him to go to hell. He accepted it. A former soldier who Bumpy had betrayed, sent to prison, released after 10 years. Bumpy gave him $20,000 and a job. The man forgave him. Some people forgave, some didn't, some couldn't. But Bumpy tried, with everyone. 16 people, 16 apologies. 8 accepted, 8 rejected. Better than nothing. By April 30th, Bumpy felt lighter. Not absolved, not redeemed.
But honest. For the first time in 40 years, he'd told the truth. About what he'd done. About who he was.
about what he regretted. That was worth something.
May 1967, Month 5, Final Messages.
May 1st. Bumpy started writing letters to everyone important. To Mamie. My love, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. 30 years of marriage, the best part of my life. You made me better. Not good, but better. Thank you for staying, for believing, for loving me despite everything. The money is yours. The businesses are yours. The choices are yours. Live well. Live free. Live happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. I love you. Always. Bumpy. To Junie. My brother, you're ready. I've taught you everything I know. The good, the bad, the ugly. Now it's your turn. Lead differently than I did. Lead better. With compassion. With wisdom. With justice. Don't just rule Harlem. Serve it. That's the difference between power and leadership.
You understand that. I didn't. Until too late. Be better than me. That's my final order. To Marcus Jr. My nephew. You're my greatest achievement. Not my empire, not my reputation. You. A good man. From a good father. Living a good life. That's what matters. Keep your father's memory alive. Teach your children about him. About peace. About building instead of destroying. And if they ask about me, tell them the truth. I was complicated. I did bad things. But I loved your father. And I loved you. That's enough. Uncle Bumpy. To Tommy Chen, my friend. 18 years. From enemies to brothers. Thank you for teaching me that different doesn't mean inferior. That cooperation beats conquest. That respect transcends race.
Keep the alliance alive, not just with Junie, but with the next generation. Show them what we built, proof that it's possible. That's your legacy too, Bumpy. To Detective O'Brien. Patrick, you proved something important, that cops and criminals can work together when both want the same thing: safety, justice, community. Thank you for being different, for being better, for showing me that badges don't make heroes, character does. Retire well, my friend. You earned it. Bumpy.
May 15th. Bumpy recorded a message, audio tape, at a radio station. His voice, weak now, but clear. My name is Bumpy Johnson. I'm 62 years old. I've been a criminal for 40 years. I've killed people, hurt people, broken laws, destroyed families. I'm not proud of that, but I won't lie about it either. I did what I did. For power, for money, for survival. Was it worth it? I don't know. I protected people, built businesses, created opportunities, but I also caused pain, suffering, loss. So what's my legacy? That's for you to decide. But I'll say this, if you're young and you're thinking about this life, don't. It's not worth it. The money is temporary, the power is fragile, the respect is fear, and fear isn't love.
Choose differently. Build instead of destroying. Create instead of taking. Love instead of dominating. That's real power. That's real legacy. I'm dying now. Heart failure. Maybe I deserve it. Maybe it's justice. Maybe it's just biology. But I'm not afraid. Because I've made my peace. With what I did. With who I was. With what I'm leaving behind. Goodbye, Harlem. Thank you for everything. I hope I gave back more than I took. That's all any of us can hope for. Bumpy Johnson, May 15th, 1967.
June 1967, Month 6, Final Days.
June 1st, Bumpy finished the 6th Community Center. Grand opening. 2,000 people attended. He gave a speech. Short, weak, but powerful. 35 years ago, I came to Harlem with nothing. I built an empire. On crime, on violence, on fear. I'm not proud of that, but I am proud of this. 6 community centers, 3 youth programs, 2 scholarship funds, 1 medical clinic, all free, all permanent, all for you. This is my apology, my thank you, my legacy. Use them well. Build futures here. Create opportunities. Transform lives. That's what I should have been doing all along. Better late than never. Thank you, Harlem, for everything. The crowd stood, applauded. Many cried. Bumpy Johnson, the king of Harlem, dying, but building.
Not destroying, building. That was his final gift.
June 7th, 1967. 1 month left. Bumpy was in and out of hospital. The pain was constant now. Dr. Chen managed it, but couldn't stop it. Mamie never left his side. Junie visited daily. Willie, Raymond, Tommy, everyone, saying goodbye, without saying the word. June 15th, Bumpy wrote his last entry in the legacy notebook. 2 weeks left, maybe less. Everything is done. Junie is ready. The money is distributed. The centers are built. The apologies are made. The letters are written. I'm ready. Not eager, but ready. I've lived 62 years, 40 of them in this life. Some good, mostly bad, but real, authentic, mine. I don't know what comes next. Heaven? Hell? Nothing. But whatever it is, I'll face it like I faced everything else. Head on.
No fear, no regrets. Well, some regrets, but nothing I can change now. So I accept. The good, the bad, all of it. This was my life. Flawed, violent, complicated, but mine, and I lived it my way. That's enough. Bumpy Johnson, June 15th, 1967. June 30th, Dr. Chen told Mamie, days now, not weeks. Mamie held Bumpy's hand. You ready? No. Me neither. Good. That means we lived well. How? If we were ready to go, it mean we had nothing to live for. But we're not ready, because we have everything. Each other. Memories, love. That's enough. Bumpy squeezed her hand. I love you, Mamie. I love you too, Bumpy. Don't forget me. Never. Promise? Promise.
July 7, 1968. Death.
July 7th, 1968, 2:30 p.m. Bumpy Johnson died at Wells Restaurant in Harlem, playing cards with friends. He'd been sick, but insisted on going out. One last time, one last game, one last moment of normalcy. He laughed at a joke, then clutched his chest, fell. Friends caught him, lowered him to the floor, called an ambulance, but he was gone. Heart attack. Quick, almost painless. Exactly how he would have wanted. Not in a hospital bed, not weak, not helpless, but out, in Harlem, with friends, living until he died. Mamie arrived, saw him, collapsed. Junie held her. Willie cried. Raymond stood silent. Tommy Chen bowed, respecting his friend, his partner, his brother. Detective O'Brien, retired now, came, paid respects, to a criminal. But also a friend. Reverend Powell came, prepared for the funeral, the biggest Harlem would ever see. 5,000 people, politicians, musicians, athletes, criminals, police, everyone. Because Bumpy Johnson wasn't just a gangster. He was Harlem.
July 15th, 1968. The funeral. Reverend Powell eulogized. Bumpy Johnson was complicated. Criminal, yes. Violent, yes. Dangerous, yes. But also protective, generous, transformative, especially at the end. His last 6 months changed Harlem. 6 community centers still stand, serving thousands. 3 youth programs still run, creating opportunities. 2 scholarship funds still award, sending kids to college. 1 medical clinic still operates, healing the sick. That's legacy. Not the crimes, not the violence. The change, the transformation. The attempt to be better, even when dying. That's what we remember. That's what we honor. Rest in peace, Bumpy Johnson. You were flawed, but you tried. That's all any of us can do. Try.
1970, 2 years later. The 6 community centers renamed Marcus Johnson Senior Community Centers in honor of Bumpy's brother. The youth programs expanded, serving 500 kids annually. The scholarship fund sent 20 kids to college every year. The medical clinic treated 3,000 patients, free. Bumpy's legacy was living.
1980, 12 years later, Marcus Johnson Jr., age 37, became New York State Senator, first in his family. Campaigned on education, justice, community investment, won overwhelmingly. In his victory speech, "My father, Marcus Johnson Sr., taught me to build. My uncle, Bumpy Johnson, showed me why. This victory is theirs, not mine."
1990, 22 years later. May Johnson, age 87, died peacefully. She'd kept the empire for 5 years, then sold it, moved to Connecticut, lived quietly, peacefully, donated millions to charity, anonymously. In her will, everything to Harlem, to the community centers, to the youth programs, to the scholarships. That's what Bumpy would have wanted. That's what I want.
2032 years later. Tommy Chen, age 84, died. His funeral, in Chinatown. Marcus Johnson Jr., age 57, gave eulogy. Tommy Chen and Bumpy Johnson proved something. That different people can work together, can respect each other, can build together. That alliance lasted 50 years, from 1949 to 1999. Longer than most marriages. That's legacy. That's brotherhood. Thank you, Tommy, for showing us what's possible.
2010, 42 years later, the 6 community centers served their millionth person. Mayor of New York attended. Ceremony, speech. Bumpy Johnson built these centers in 1967, 43 years ago, when he was dying. He could have spent his last months resting. Instead, he built. For strangers. For people he'd never meet. For generations he'd never see. That's vision. That's leadership. That's legacy.
2025, 57 years later. Marcus Johnson IV, Bumpy's great-great-nephew, age 15, visited Bumpy's grave with his father, Marcus III. "Dad, who was Bumpy Johnson really?" "He was complicated." "Bad guy or good guy?" "Both." "How can someone be both?" "Because people aren't simple. Bumpy did bad things, hurt people, but he also protected people. And at the end, he tried to fix what he broke." "Did he? Fix it?" "Partly. The community centers he built, they're still running, helping thousands. That's something." "Is that enough to make up for the bad?" "I don't know, but it's something. And something is better than nothing." The boy nodded, then read the gravestone. Bumpy Johnson, 1905, 1968. He tried to be better. That was enough. Simple, honest.
True. That was Bumpy's legacy. Not perfection, not redemption, but effort, the attempt to be better, even when dying, even when it was too late, even when he knew he couldn't undo the past. He tried, and 57 years later, people still remembered. Not just the crimes, but the change. That was enough. That was everything. If this story of final redemption, legacy building, and transformation moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe that it's never too late to try to be better. Share this with someone who needs to hear about the gangster who spent his last 6 months building instead of taking. What would you do with 6 months to live? Let me know in the comments. And remember, legacy isn't about perfection. It's about effort. It's about trying, even when dying. Bumpy Johnson tried and changed Harlem forever. That's legacy. That's redemption. That's hope.